Welcome to Fireteam Chat, IGN's Destiny show. It's good to be back. Joining me today via VMix and our producer, calling them in. C-Team Malkowitz is back on the show. Brian, it's been too long. D-Team now. You got demoted because you
demoted. I demoted myself because I've been MIA for a while. So there you go.
Travis Northup.
McClunky, how you doing?
And Paul Tassi.
I just realized that everyone's back and I can't steal their catchphrases now. So
C-Team because I demoted myself.
All right,
That's right.
Well, I'll promote myself to B Team.
Paul, PlayStation Trophies Tassi. That's what we call him on the internet. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about our reaction to the finale, because the finale happened last week. There was no new story content this week, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we feel about that. We're going to talk about the strike, the Proving Ground strike, and our reaction to that, and just everything that's been going on. There's a lot. So let's start with the season finale. The story has concluded, and I have to wonder, is this the best story that we've had ever in Destiny, or at least for seasonal content? Paul, I'll go to you first. You're on the end of the docket there. What do you think?
I definitely think it is, at least especially in terms of a season. I think you could argue maybe Forsaken could be, but I think the arcs that we're seeing here are more fleshed out. We have a lot more characters involved. We have 5 or 6 people at the same time kind of in the voice cast. We have a ton of different means of storytelling, which is unusual. We have all the Battlegrounds conversations. We have stuff going on at the helm, and then we have a couple cutscenes like the one that we had last week to kind of cap all this off. And it's also pretty unusual to get a fully new voiced villain in the form of Caiatl kind of sticking around this season. And she's not really a villain after all, as I predicted. So it's been great kind of seeing this fleshed out. It's hard to compare this story to any other standalone season story. Like, I don't think anything else is close. Like, you could argue like Opulence is a better season because of Menagerie and the raid and stuff, maybe, but for me, this is probably the best season and certainly the best storytelling season.
Brian, as I fix my mic here, you haven't been on the show for so long. I'm really, really happy to have you back and have you on the show. You haven't really talked about what's been going on this season. What is your reaction? The story's concluded. We know everything that's going to come out with this particular season. And did you like it? What'd you think?
I think it's great. I think I agree with saying that it is probably the best season storytelling that we've had so far. I think it's close second to Season of Dawn for me, with everything with Saint 14. But yeah, with it's specifically regarding the ending there, and I guess it's not so much the ending too, but with the whole, are we okay with spoilers? I think at this point we're good with spoilers, right? We can talk about what actually happens.
Yeah, spoiler warning.
Yeah. So the Scion, aims his rifle at at Zaval's ghost shell and kind of just muzzles it basically to take away his light. And that's kind of, I'm kind of confused. If anybody, you guys can help me on why we needed that tech to take away Zavala's light. Because I know the Scions wanted to kill him. But if you take a look back to Forsaken, that's exactly what happens with Cade and the Scorn. They aim their rifle at the ghost and they destroy the ghost with a rifle. So I'm just kind of like, why did we need like a muzzling thing to take away?
I can launch into a long answer for that one if you want.
Please, Brian, you're opening Pandora's box because there's so many theories. Like, maybe they wanted the technology of the ghost. Maybe there's there's light there.
Sure, but it's just like it's like 2 kills of Zavala. It's just like they've already done that exact scenario where they did
that on purpose. Text. Like it was like a storytelling mirror. But like the reason Cade's ghost was killed is it was a pair of causal bullets, which is very hard to craft. And it's like, you can't just like shoot a ghost with a sniper rifle. Like, that won't work because it's made of Traveler material or whatever. So you need a fancy pair of causal bullets. I don't know how those are made. I don't remember how that's made. This time we did a story mission earlier, kind of finding the tech for this device. And it was based on Gaul's tech that he used to trap Traveler and contain the light. So here it was a micro version of that just trapped the ghost in a little tiny cage, so Zavala was exposed. So if he was killed then, theoretically, the ghost wouldn't have been able to revive him. I don't know what happens when you take the cage off the ghost, and then maybe it can revive him again. I'm not sure, but that's kind of the difference in why that happened.
Well, it's good to know. I mean, I was just because like I had no idea about the paracausal bullets.
I didn't know that at the time.
Exactly right. Because when you're watching that cutscene, if you're just taking the story face value, you don't know that because they're not sitting there explaining it like, oh, that guy just loaded a paracausal bullet into his sniper rifle and he's going to kill the ghost. But so that's where that confusion comes in, because I'm just like, why did he need the cage to kill?
Fair.
Yeah, so that's where the confusion came in, because I didn't go deep into that lore to find all that information out about the paracausal bullets and Cade's ghost. So
reining it back in with you, Brian. What did you think of the overall story told? Did you like it? You're focusing on this one small thing, but like overall, like the narrative told, did you enjoy it through and through?
I did. I did enjoy it. I do want Bungie to move forward with this type of storytelling throughout the season. I did find it a little weird that the season ended basically last week, and we've got like an entire month, because normally the season would end like, you know, a week or two before the next season would come out. So it's like kind of weird that we have like this month-long lull before the next season comes. But yeah, no, I think it's great. You know, I really, this is the first season in a while where I'm just like, yeah, I want to sign on each week to get that story beat. I know we had that stuff when, like, you know, when Arrivals came out, but it wasn't, the story beats weren't as like fluid. They weren't as like, you know, they weren't as full, so it didn't feel like I needed to get on each week to do it. But this time around, it was really good.
Seeing you've been off the show for a while, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Presage. What did you think?
Surprised, honestly. Like it came, I know you guys talked about it a lot, but it came out of nowhere, for everybody, right? Really early in the season, and like those types of missions are where like Bungie shines. And I think they need to like really hone in that like creepy, dark horror kind of aspect in Destiny works really well. And I hadn't felt that in Destiny 2 in its lifetime. The only time I've ever really felt that was in D1, like going into the moon the first time, and, you know, just going into the caverns that were built by the Hive and stuff like that. So it was really nice to see them kind of just like lean into their ability to craft environments that kind of just give you these four of eyes in a game that isn't really meant to scare you or make you feel uneasy most of the time.
Okay, Travis, you've been biting your tongue long enough. Let's hear your thoughts.
Man, I'm excited, dude. That ending, I'll just start there with the ending, since that's the main thing that happened since last time we spoke. But I love that we were all expecting her to break the sword and say, you know, the old ways are done. We're going to join the Guardians. And instead she picks up a Scion and breaks him in half, which I think was even better. So yeah, I really liked it. I love the cliffhanger of like who actually is to blame. It seems like it's probably Amtech, which I won't get into the I told you so's there, but I think I was right.
Again.
I think I was right about that one.
Okay.
But anyway, so yeah, now we get to have kind of like this probably fragile alliance with some of the Cabal, and then we've got some other Cabal out there who still hate us, and this interesting assassination attempt mystery to solve. It is a little weird that we have a lull in the middle of the season, essentially, but that's probably due to the delays. I know, the season got delayed and Beyond Light got delayed, and probably everything's just a little off kilter. But it'll be nice to give people a chance to catch up if they didn't play the seasons live or the weeks live as the season was progressing. And yeah, I agree with Paul. I think this is the best storytelling we've had in a season, period. And I think some of the other main campaign stories have been great, like D2 Vanilla strikes me as like a really good campaign in terms of its story, and Forsaken was awesome. But I think the format and the scope of it, and the fact that we actually had an ensemble cast instead of it focusing on one person and being like, all right, this is the Iron Lords, it's just Saladin's expansion. I really liked that there were multiple people all involved, and I think this is the model for storytelling going forward in Destiny. And if they can pull this off consistently, I mean, that's great, because I do think, the story has always been one of those things that I assume most of the community doesn't actually care about all that much, right? Like Brian is a guy who plays Destiny every single week, and he didn't know about paracausal bullets being able to kill Cade and stuff like that. And I think that's sort of the problem with Destiny, is most people don't know that the lore is actually good, and that the characters have depth, and that the world building has depth, because Bungie doesn't focus on that stuff in game anyway. They focus on it in kind of peripheral lore books and that sort of stuff. So yeah, man, I was super stoked with how things ended. The strike, on the other hand, the actual event we were doing, we could probably talk about that later. But in terms of story and the way it ended, I was really impressed and happy by it.
And just so everybody knows how smart I am, I totally knew about the paracausal bullets. Definitely knew. Definitely did not just learn about it.
I can't imagine that is widely known knowledge. Like I know about
definitely not.
I don't even remember where the lore for that is. Someone just told me that on Twitter. Like, I assume, I was like, after that happened, I was like, why don't they just always shoot our ghosts with guns then? Like, why is that not a thing? And then that's the answer, because you just can't kill ghosts outside of very specific means.
I can't imagine that's a hard line to put in somewhere. Like when they're like hovering over Cade's body at the tower or something, it's like, how did they do it? And it's like just a 10-second line of explaining that it's a paracausal bullet would have helped somewhat. So it's like, it's deep lore stuff like that I think they need to like to make sure that people are aware of, because then you have that problem like where I'm just like, why did they need that? Right.
I mean, it's a space opera, so like you're not really concerned with like the how they're doing things. It's really about like, you know what I mean? Like everything doesn't make sense.
Plenty of people are concerned with the how, but they get real deep into the how.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing with Star Wars. There's people who are really like focused on the how, and I'm like, dude, they're wizards in space. Like, just get over it, man. Like, get on board or get off.
Magic involved, you can just.
That's what Star Wars fans love to hear.
I'll keep my impressions very short and sweet. I think this is one of the strongest seasons that they have done potentially ever. I would have to really, really consider it, but right now I would say this is probably my favorite season that they have ever done. I loved how the finale sort of mirrored what happened with Cade. I saw some fans pointing that out on Twitter. I don't know if that was intentional or if they just ended up mirroring that sort of sequence, but it was really, really great. And seeing Crow come full circle and become a trusted ally now, potentially within the Vanguard, it's really, really fun to watch his growth as a character, and what's going to happen with him is more interesting to us now because we've been there through all of these moments. And I'm also in the same boat as you guys. I don't understand why there's just nothing until next season. Basically, next season we know Ada 1's coming. That's very compelling, and I'm excited about that. And yeah, there was one other addition, though. We also got the Proving Ground strike, which was sort of the catalyst for the finale that we got to experience, the cutscene. And I'd love to hear from everybody on the panel. Brian, I'll throw it to you again because you've been off the show for longest. But what did you think about this Proving Ground strike?
I think it's a good strike, right? It's short enough that like, you can see that the way that Destiny's been trying to go with like strike missions, especially like when they axed like a bunch of them, that, having a good shortest strike when you're going through the strike playlist, that this one, when you're just trying to grind strikes, is nice to have, and, not too super reliant on like your teammates failing or something, like if you're playing the corrupted strike. But yeah, I know we're going to probably talk about it later, but man, that Grandmaster, oof. I'm just getting like Vietnam flashbacks on that one. But yeah, I think overall it's a good strike, beat to beat. The enemy density isn't as great as, something like what they did with Fallen Saber, or not Fallen Saber, but the Devil's Lair. So I'm hoping that, they look more towards what they did with Devil's Lair going forward with strikes, as far as like enemy density, and moment to moment. But yeah, I think overall, it's like, it's a good strike. Not like, obviously not the best or anything like that, but yeah, I think it's good.
Travis, you were last. Why don't you go next this time?
Yeah, I thought it was a decent strike. I think my main complaints are the enemy density, the fact that the kind of gravity of the situation didn't really match how brief the strike was, right? And the final boss was just sort of like some dude. It wasn't really connected to, it wasn't Callus, right? It wasn't that big moment where like Zavala there were a lot of like narrative stuff around that strike that didn't make sense. It's like, all right, Zavala and Caiatl are 1v1ing, right? And instead they're sending 3 guardians to kill one dude who also has a whole bunch of other guys around him, and that didn't really make sense. And then, there's just like a lot of stuff around that. It just seemed really brief for what a big moment it was. But as a strike, it's fairly competent. It was really weird that in a season that's been packed with tons of enemies flying at you all at once, that strike, you're sort of like looking around for things to shoot. Like, I have nothing to do right now, right? And then you kill the boss and do the same exact mechanic you do during all of the battlegrounds. And I think we were talking last show about how we really didn't want this to just be like another glorified battleground. And in my opinion, it's kind of exactly that. It's just another battleground, and with another nameless, faceless cabal that we'll forget in a week who even was. But yeah, other than that, it was fun. I ran it 3 times just to get that challenge, that weekly challenge done, and we'll probably try to avoid it forevermore. But I'm not a strike guy, so it's not really for me, right?
Did you do it on Grandmaster?
No, I'm still not 1325.
Yeah,
I'm not high enough power, man.
You're off the show. Okay.
Yeah,
exactly.
Get him out of here.
Uh-oh. It's all Brian and Paul now, because I'm not 1325 either.
Get out of here.
Paul,
fake Destiny gamers over here.
Paul,
I can show you my hours. Like,
what did you think about Proving Grounds, the strike?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 versions. Like, we can talk about Grandmaster a little bit here, but in terms of just the strike itself, it is kind of what I thought it would be, in that I think it's kind of a worse Battlegrounds, because at least Battlegrounds has loads of enemy density, and it's really fun to kind of play through those segments just because of the swarms and swarms of enemies you get. This was more kind of a standard strike where enemy density was much more normal and not kind of overwhelming. And then it just uses the same Battleground mechanics twice. There's 2 guys with dome shields, and then Ignovan, or whatever his name is at the end. Like, I agree with Travis that I felt like that was kind of an anticlimactic ending, because when you're playing it like at story difficulty,
I
he just
destroyed
dies
him.
like in a thunder crash, and you're like, okay, all that for this? Like, I felt like the story version of that should have been at least somewhat higher than it was. Like, I get that they want everyone to play through it, but narratively it was kind of a joke, in terms of like, it was supposed to be this big epic battle, and then it was like, a one-hit kill essentially of her champion. Grandmaster, of course, is a different story, and that's the one that felt like, okay, this is like the ultimate, trial of the Guardians, and like we could actually lose this thing, and have lost many a time. But I think it's fine. I like having shorter strikes. I don't want another corrupted showing up in the strike playlist that I have to back out of, because I know it'll take 3 times as long as anything else. So it's good to have something like this in there. I just don't think it was just kind of a battleground light, and it didn't really do all that much for me.
Yeah, so narratively, I really liked it, but yeah, I don't know. So design-wise, I really want to give thanks to the designers for taking the time to make the armor so ornate and intricate and detailed, because I've really, really loved that about the final encounters of all the Cabal in the Proving Grounds missions. And this Proving Grounds strike, I really like the narrative and the lore, and how Zavala and Caiatl are going back and forth, and then we're rewarded with this big cutscene. But I'm not particularly incentivized to do it on Grandmaster, and I'm just going to use this as a opportunity to transition right into that. Largely, I'm just going to let Brian and Paul talk about it, because I still am not 1325 to do the Grandmaster Nightfalls. I hear the rewards are really good. Paul, I'm sure you're going to talk about that in a second, but I don't care. Like, there's no story incentivization for me to do anything else with Destiny right now. So I'm kind of at that point where I'm like, it's break time. I'm going to go play Outriders or something, right? So Paul, why don't you tell us about Grandmaster, what that difficulty was like, what the rewards were like, and why you think it's too generous.
I tell you what the rewards were like if I beat it, which I didn't.
Okay.
I mean, so I've been kind of talking about Grandmaster rewards and how they are disproportionately way above and beyond anything else in the game, in terms of the amount of, especially the amount of like ascendant charge you get for masterworking. Like, you can, last week when we were talking about Arms Dealer, I was running GMs in 15 minutes and getting 1 or 2 ascendant shards a run, whereas that takes an entire reset's worth of Gambit to get 1 shard once a season. And so that's something I think is out of balance. And I'm not saying to nerf GMs, I'm saying more to like put more shards other places, but that did stand out to me. But now then you have something that's this hard, and you're like, okay, I get the crazy amount of rewards this gets because it's one of the hardest things in the game. And the consensus seems to be it is among the hardest GMs in the game. It might be behind the Corrupt. I think that everyone thinks the Corrupted still is number 1, and then maybe the Glassway and Garden World, I think, but it's somewhere in there. And it's the whole thing with GMs is like either you're motivated to do it, like pretty much you're not really doing something like this for the rewards. Like, yeah, everyone wants an adept palindrome, but you can also just wait until it's a less awful week to farm an adept palindrome if you really want. So at this point, it's pretty much about doing it to say you did it, or if you're on the path to Guild the Conqueror title. I don't have a problem with the difficulty. Like for me personally, I think I just ended up eventually hitting a wall where, in terms of like, instead of like, okay, I'm going to press forward and grind down, and me and my team are going to like clutch up and do this, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to play Outriders. Like, I don't really want to spend another 6 hours in this tank room, like dying to splash damage. Like, I know the strats. Like, I've watched all the videos. Like, I get that if I really, really focused all my energy and tried and got my team to do all the strats and stuff perfectly, like we could beat it. But for me, I don't care enough. Like I might go back to it later when it's back in the rotation, but like maybe if Outriders hadn't dropped this week, I would do it. But it just doesn't seem like a good use of my somewhat limited gaming time where I need 12 hours a day to play Outriders.
Ryan,
so
oh, sorry, go on.
It's hard. Yeah, no, I'm done. But it was a little too much for me in the end. But I did try. I made an effort.
Brian, talking about the Proving Grounds on Grandmaster and just generally Grandmaster Strikes, how are you feeling about them?
Okay. I've gotten through all of them so far this season. So, I beat Proving Grounds a couple days ago on Grandmaster. And like Paul said, the rewards are far and away much better there than anywhere else in the game. But this week, especially since it's double Nightfall drops, right? So if you complete a Grandmaster, like I got my first run through, I got 3 exotic drops, 2 shards, and so and that's a lot. But again, you're spending a lot of time in that Grandmaster, especially if you don't have all the strats down or you haven't beaten it your first time, because I'll say it took us a long time to get through it the first time. Trying it over the course of a few days, and yeah, it's this week's difficulty introduces a problem overall, Grandmasters, right? This week being especially hard, it kind of just de-incentivizes you to want to do it because the rewards next week are going to be the same. Granted, you're not going to get Palindrome next week because of the rotation, but when Palindrome is in rotation at the end of the season and all Grandmasters are available, everybody's just going to do Arms Dealer because Arms Dealer is a joke of a Grandmaster. I did that Grandmaster last week, first try, and it wasn't difficult because it's Arms Dealer. Arms Dealer inherently isn't really that difficult of a strike, especially if you cheese it and you jump up to make the boss spawn earlier than he's supposed to. But yeah, I don't know. It's they, and as Paul said, they do have some issues to address with like how you get these shards and other loots across different playlists and other activities. But yeah, I don't know. I'm in it now just because I've completed 3 to get the Gilded Conqueror sealed. But yeah, there's a lot of other issues that I can explain. That I can go on a lot longer than that. But I'll let you guys give your opinions too.
Well, we didn't do it. And I have no incentivization to do it.
You suck.
That's my opinion. Like, I'm glad that you guys were able to do it and that you enjoy the rewards, or Paul at least attempt it. I don't care. Like, what am I going to get? Like, I'm going to get some Ascendant shards, some prisms. I am not incentivized whatsoever to
Palindrome.
I already have.
Yeah, I mean,
like I already have a God roll Palindrome.
Yeah, because there was a different strike you get it in. So yeah, you're right. It's like,
yeah, you can get it much easier than that. And I just think there's a problem with incentivization for some of these really, really tough activities. You're giving us, you might as well just give us 50,000 glimmer or something. Like, it's just a really valuable.
I would take that.
I would take that. I would absolutely take that.
I'm so low on glimmer these days.
Go sell some legendary shards at Spider.
Oh, no, you're right. No, I can do that easily. I got 20,000 shards and I can do it. But it's like, or legendary shards and I can do it. But it's like, if there's an activity that just like guarantees you 50,000 glimmer at the end, all right, I'll do that.
Never thought I'd be saying that, but yes, that's where we are.
Well, Travis, you can chime in on that, but I also want to hear from you on Guardian Games. Apparently there was a leak. Maybe you could tell us more about that. And if you have anything you want to add about it, but I don't think.
Yeah, guess the thing I'll add is, I'm not 1325 because I basically only do Crucible, and there's not a whole lot of powerful drops from there, and so my climb has been really slow. Only other thing I'm doing that does powerfuls is the raid, which I'm still trying to get Eyes of Tomorrow to no avail. So
Still?
Yeah, dude.
So
I've done it every week.
Actually,
I've done it every week, dude. I still don't have it. So yeah, I'll continue to do that, but I'll probably get to 1325 near the end of the season when all the Grandmasters are open, and I'll kind of decide then if it's something that I want to grind for. But my thinking after watching this week, on Twitter, just everybody playing it, I'm just like, man, I'm kind of glad I'm not doing that. Like, I'll just stick to Crucible and have fun, and if I really feel like I need it for trials, I need an Adept Palindrome to be competitive, then maybe I'll do it. But I'm not there yet, man. I'm doing fine just playing trials every weekend, and that's
so long as 120s rule Crucible, you don't need a palindrome right now.
Exactly. So I'm not worried about it. Yep.
So that's the thing. Right now, GM loot is like not really that good. Like it could be if they buff certain archetypes, but for now, like it doesn't compare to the new trials loot. Like if this was like Igneous Hammer Adept that you got from Proving Grounds, that would be one thing. And there's your incentivization. But it just so happens that like these archetypes are out of favor right now and they're not great.
And then Guardian Games is right around the corner. Travis, do you know what's going on with that? Otherwise, I'll throw it to Paul.
No, so there was a leak. I think Paul probably knows most about it because I think he wrote an article about it. But yeah.
All right, spoiler warning.
There was a leak about Guardian Games.
Paul, is it interesting or no?
Well, I don't know any story components. I know that there are story components. Like there is supposed to be some sort of story thing that happens here. So I don't think we're like done with the Caiatl plotline. Like the Battlegrounds quests every week are over, but I think something will happen. Like, I don't know, maybe we'll like Caiatl at the tower. Like there's a whole segment that's like called the closing ceremonies that are a couple of days, which I don't think we had last time. So this is something tied to that, I assume. The leaks are just about kind of what you're doing. So it's not really a spoiler. It's this time around, you have to commit to a class. Like you can't just play all three classes and just like that never really made sense. So like I think you'll pledge one at the beginning. It's not like it'll block off your other characters, but like you need to be like, okay, I'm doing the Warlocks or Titans or whatever, and then it will count your progress towards that. This time around, it's based on something with the strike playlist, where I'm not sure if they're fully changing it to be like every strike you run will be 3 Warlocks, 3 Titans, and 3 Hunters, or if you're just getting bonuses based on your class. But like each class is getting some sort of bonus where Titans get like crazy resilience and increased primary weapon damage or something, and Warlocks get, I don't know, crazy recovery. Like I don't remember what the full list is, but like you get specific bonuses just kind of solely based on your class. So it's going to be a little different than last time, and it sounds more interesting. We'll see what kind of the rewards and stuff are, and if it's going to be severely lopsided like it was last time in favor of Titans with their balancing.
Yeah, like based on the numbers alone, if you look at the data from the last one, everybody should just roll Titan if they want. Like if it's tied to a reward, if they're making you pick, you have to pick Titan. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. Like Hunters were defeated so much. There's just no way they win this Guardian Games, in my opinion. And Warlocks were still handily defeated by Titans. Titans just took it away. So if you have to pick one, like the leak is suggesting, then I'm just going to say, okay, I'll pick my Titan just because I want the reward.
I feel like you won't. I feel like they're not going to not give you the reward for it. Like it might cost you 100,000 glimmer or something.
Yeah.
Or you might have to wait a week, or I don't know, something. But like I would not guess that they would totally restrict you from it based on that. And I'm saying that because I'm going to do Warlock, and I know we're going to lose. So
yeah, stay strong. Stay strong.
Yeah,
they better not. I'll come back to this other one in a second, Travis. But you talked about Ada 1's role in season 14 has been clarified. She's our new armor baron. Well, the gunsmith will be fine-tuned to focus on guns. And she's also going to help us with our transmog, and weapons are being improved, like Celerity and Bottomless Grief. They're being changed. Bottomless Grief is going to give 30 magazine, which is significant. And Celerity is going to give plus 20 reload and handling. And is also optional. So, I went into trials and I got Celerity, and it's always a huge bummer when you get that perk. Does this move the needle for anybody on the panel? And how excited are you about Ada 1? Travis?
Yeah, so for the Celerity and Bottomless, those were actually, that was going to be my Bungie please this week. I posted on Twitter that I just think they should delete those perks, and then they kind of got out ahead of me with this, so good on them. But yeah, my thought is that what they're basically doing is they're making this an optional perk that you can toggle off or on with another regular perk, for those weapons that get it. I assume that means that Celerity and Bottomless will not drop on non trials drops, just like world loot drops. So I think that's pretty cool. But this was one of those things where they're a good idea that people don't want in most situations. And so I think that the ability to turn it on and off and make it a normal weapon is going to be huge in terms of people using it. And then the buffs that they gave each of them, I think they are significant. I don't know if they'll move the needle just because they are so really situational. Like, it has to be a very specific situation to use them, but it definitely makes them more appealing. So yeah, I'm satisfied with this. I think this is enough for them to make it okay. I don't think that it solves the issue of trials and Grandmaster Nightfall loot not really feeling like significant enough or like different enough, but it at least gets rid of that really awful problem of like you getting a random weapon and then it's got celerity on it and you just immediately shard it because you know that it's not going to be useful, and that was a horrible feeling. So I'm glad it's fixed.
Well, seeing these are sort of like topics that you wanted to talk about, I'll also throw you the Iron Banner one. There were some new tests done about how matchmaking is done. Basically, it's a schoolyard pick style draft. Mm-hmm. Did you notice the change, and what did you think?
Yeah, I did notice the change. So this has been like a complaint for a long time. I think like we've been talking about this ever since I've been on the show, where like you'll get into a Crucible playlist and they're doing it based on connection based matchmaking, and they've tried a few other models in the past. And so what they're doing now is I think it's called like a snake draft, where like the top most skilled player will be on team 1, and then team 2 will get the second and third most skilled player, and then team 1 will get the fourth most skilled player, and it snakes along until the team's full, right?
Makes sense. What are they doing?
Yeah, it does.
What were they doing before?
Yeah.
What
were they doing before? Because like you just get cream before, and I'm like, why is it like this? And I've been asking that for so long.
So yeah, I think before it was mostly based on connection, and then the other factors were like secondary. So now they're changing it up. But I did notice it. If you guys played a lot of Iron Banner last week, as I did, like the matches, there were still like a lot of times where we just like shut the other team down. But I will say, like, there were closer matches. I felt like none of the teams were like completely unfair. I did a lot of freelance in Iron Banner, which is when that's when matchmaking counts the most. So yeah, I think it worked, and hopefully they'll roll that out to the comp playlist and a few other playlists, because I think right now it was just a test. But yeah, I noticed it. I'd be curious to see if you guys noticed any change, or if you have any thoughts on it.
I played a few, and yeah, matches were closer, which is great. It makes a more compelling gameplay experience. Brian, Paul, you want to comment on any of the things that I talked about, starting with Iron Banner?
Never touched the freelance playlist.
Paul?
So
I did.
Because he has friends.
No, I did. One thing I noticed actually was that there were a couple of Mercy games, but when there was a Mercy game, it wouldn't automatically break the team up every time. It would just reshuffle everyone and do the snake pick thing. And then we had a closer game the next time without having to find an entirely new match. So that's something I noticed happened a few times. So yeah, overall, I think it was better. Then they disabled it, and then I started running with a pack, and I think we mercied like 8 teams in a row or something. Not because of me, believe me, because of my teammates. But so I don't know if it's applicable really to the normal playlist, but I think it definitely helped in freelance. In terms of the other stuff you brought up, I'm excited about the changes to. Well, I'm excited about the arrival of Ada, mostly because of the arrival of Transmog. I thought all the changes they listed here were kind of like good quality of life changes, but I don't know how they affect me personally, because I'm not someone who's like looking at Banshee every day to see what mods you have, because like I play through those seasons and I make sure to get every seasonal mod like as soon as they drop. And like I know a lot of people didn't play like Season of the Worthy and stuff, which is why no one has Warman sell mods, but it doesn't really affect me. I don't really see the problem with just like listing all the mods and letting people buy them at this point. I don't really get why they want to keep doing RNG for that, even if it's better RNG. Ada selling an armor set is kind of whatever. We already had that with the Crucible vendors, or the vendors that exist now. And every so often there'll be like a good piece to pick up, but it's not anything huge. The Banshee thing is interesting, where he's going to be selling 6 Whirlpool drops every week, and this is kind of like a D1 thing where like you would go and run and check and see if the vendors have anything good this week. I think they're trying to recapture that. The problem is the Whirlpool kind of sucks and has been boring for a while now, so I think they need to add a bunch more stuff to the Whirlpool pool this time around. This is getting a little complicated because there's no sunsetting, but if suddenly, Banshee's selling a new Bygones for me, like day one, I'll be excited about that. So things like that. I think that has a potential to, get you a few good rolls if you're just having bad luck, but we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah. Now that we know that Transmog is right around the corner, they talked about that a little bit. I'm just deleting capes that I don't like for my hunter and just armor that I think is ugly or has a bad stat roll. I'm just like, I have no reason to hold on to this now. And it feels so good because it feels like the collection system is actually at least halfway doing what its intended purpose was. I don't have to save ugly armor anymore just for collection purposes. Yeah. They've been collected in the collection system, and that made me really happy. But I'm more interested to see what Ada is going to be doing narratively. Is she going to have the old Black Armory set? I certainly hope so, because some of those pieces I definitely want to use to transmog my character. What are we at for time? Yeah, we're a little low on time, so I definitely want to make moment for Brian to comment on any of the things. Brian, do you have anything you want to add?
Just sell me Rage of the Warmind.
Yeah.
It's been since October of last year that Banshee has sold it, and it's the only Charge of Light mod that I missed, or not Charge of Light, but a Warmind Cell mod that I missed, and it's annoying, and please, for the love of God, just sell it. That's it.
All right. And the last section of the show is Bungie Please. This is something Travis came up with, and I really like it. So, Travis, what do you got this week?
Yeah, my Bungie Please this week was get rid of Celerity and Bottomless. So that happened. So I guess preemptively, Bungie thank you is my my opening. But I do have I have a few other Bungie Pleases I've been sitting on. This week I'll start with the most useless one, which is I want to have Sparrow Horns back. Remember, we used to have Sparrow Horns?
What's with everyone in loving Sparrow Horns? I've never understood this fascination with Sparrow Horns. Everyone's like obsessed with it. It's just another cluttered box thing I don't want in my inventory. I don't get it.
You know what? I mean, for a guy who likes Destiny, I thought you would appreciate customization, Paul. But some of us like the novelty of it. And Bungie, it would give you another revenue stream. That would be all over Eververse. I mean, it's just a purely cosmetic thing, right? So it's another thing for you to sell. But I thought, last week my Bungie Please was like, tell me why sparrows are still in this game. And one of the things that came out of that was that, yeah, you know what? Like, what about horns too? Like that used to be part of sparrows. So I know I'm going a little sparrow heavy, but I wanted to do something that was very nitpicky. And yeah, sparrow horns. I think Guardian games would be a great time to bring them back, or maybe during one of the holiday events where we normally are, just making cookies and getting materials that we already have too many of. Make a way for us to like farm horns and introduce like a new cosmetic that we can start collecting again. I think that'd be great. So that's my Bungie Please.
Brian, what you got?
Mine's probably a little bit more relatable, but please, don't worry. I agree with you though, Travis. I want Sparrow Horns back. Please uncap prisms and shards. Like we can only hold 50 on our characters across all 3 characters, and 50 in each of their postmasters, and that kind of sucks, and 10 shards, and it creates a problem when they have weeks like this week where it's double nightfall drops. And so doing master or legend nightfalls grants you a bunch of prisms or shards, and then you're just piled up with them, and you have less armor to masterwork things, and you want to bank some of these things, but you can't because of the limits on them. So please uncap those so I can have more in my inventory. Let me be rich. That's what I'm saying.
Paul, do you have one or no?
I almost did that one this week, but I had a backup one in mind anyway. I don't think I've done this before, but I have been saying this forever now, where I think we got to get to a system where you can just unlock all of the artifact mods. I do not understand why there is this pick 12 system with the artifact mods where you can only do that many at a time. Like maybe it starts like that, but as you like as a reward for getting deep into the season pass or something, as a reason to do it, you should be able to just unlock everything in that list, because nothing is more annoying than figuring out your team wants to do X or Y strat, and out of the 2 final row things, you have missed the one you need, and you have to reset your whole artifact, go through all 12 again. And like, I don't understand why it's like this. Like, presumably they thought that maybe you could make some too many OP builds, but like, I have not really seen anything like that. Like the things you can combine if you had access to all the mods, like there's not enough energy slots. Like, and some of these things, it's like a 6 energy thing in your class item and a 5 energy thing in your class item. And like, you can't even pair stuff like that at baseline. So I do not understand the fascination with this like pick 12 on the artifact system, and why we can't just eventually unlock everything. Like I would love to hear an explanation for that, because we've had the artifacts for a long time now, and this is not, pretty much nothing about the artifacts has changed. Like not the power level stuff, not the artifact mods themselves. And like this one to me seems like a no-brainer in terms of quality of life, and I am not clear on why it's the artifact is not evolving in any significant way.
Agreed, 100%.
You kind of stole mine. Mine is pretty simple. The artifact power thing, unlimited power, it's not good. Just do
it's about
anything.
To be like the only power source, essentially.
I know. So like,
yeah,
you're just getting all this passive power. So like, Bungie, what you want me to do is grab a bunch of bounties and do bounties. That's how you want me to get power in the game. That is not fun to do. So I really think it needs to be revisited, or like capped at plus 15 power or something, because by the end of the season, I don't even know what my artifact power, it's probably giving me like plus 10 or plus 11 at this point. And it's just a weird system that just doesn't feel good to earn that power. I don't know.
Especially when they take it away from your Grandmasters.
Yeah. And then it's just gone. Yep. So like they've already made the decision, be like, okay, every season we're just going to do 10 power instead of 100 or whatever they were doing, and I appreciate that. And now I'm like, okay, you really got to look at your artifact and the unlimited power thing, because I just don't get it. Like, yep. What's the design goal? What's going on there? Please, like, you want us to have unlimited powers. You just want us to play our game, but the only not compelling way to do it is bounties. And you've talked about the bounty system and how it's flawed, and you've tied it to this mechanic. So this isn't a Bungie please thing. This is actually like what is going on? I don't understand this.
Bungie WTF.
Yeah. Bungie please explain.
Yeah.
Well, it's about to get worse too, because the traditional power grind's going away. So you're going to have 10 power from pinnacles or whatever, and then 15 to 30 power just from the artifact alone. Like, it'll be the bulk of power gains, if that even still matters. I don't know what they're doing with activity power levels, but if they're doing stuff like GMs where it's contest mode anyway, it might not matter. But like, then at that point, why have the unlimited power gain in the first place?
And artifact power doesn't matter for any of the modes where that are end game, right? For trials, for Grandmaster Nightfall, like it just doesn't matter. And then for raids, it's you're already
weird.
Like way
it doesn't matter because
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the whole system is weird. Like, raids are easier to complete now to get tentacles than a Nightfall. What is happening? What?
Oh, it's been like that for a while.
Yeah. A long time. Yeah.
Anyway, it's weird, and I have a 1:00, so that means we're at the end of the show. Thank you, Paul, Brian, Travis, for joining me. We're going to come back when there's like a significant content drop. Hopefully that's in 2 weeks. If it's not, keep an eye on the community tab on YouTube, or you can just follow us on Twitter and we'll let you know. But that's it for this episode of Fireteam Chat. So until the next one, Guardians
out.